If you work for Pfizer, stop what you're doing and listen to this. The company just announced sweeping changes to their severance package. Starting January 1st, 2027, there will be a significant reduction in the benefits calculation for the severance, as well as a reduction in the healthcare continuation of coverage. For tenured Pfizer colleagues, this can be a six-figure or more difference in the value of the package. I'm Brennan Decima, owner of Decima Wealth Consulting and certified financial planner. I work with Pfizer colleagues every single day. I have helped hundreds of Pfizer colleagues navigate their separation. If you have questions about the Pfizer PRAP, Rule of 90, the separation package, the retiree medical, or any of the long-term incentives, this is what I do. In my opinion, you deserve more than a corporate memo. You deserve someone that's been there for others that can help walk you through it. So let's talk about the current changes and what they mean for you. All right, let's start with the big one, cash severance. Under the current separation package, most Pfizer colleagues fall under the formula of 10 weeks of pay plus 3 weeks for every year employed by Pfizer. This has been the case for the last couple of years, and in my experience, it's one of the more generous separation packages in the pharma industry. Starting January 1st, 2027, that multiplier drops significantly. It's still 10 weeks of pay, but instead of 3 weeks for every year of employment, it's now 2 weeks for every year of employment. That may sound like a minor change, but when we start to look at the dollars, that change can carry some significant weight. All right, let's put some real numbers behind the change so you can see the power and the difference of the formula change. So under the current formula, let's say you've worked for Pfizer for 20 years. Well, under the current formula, it's 10 weeks of pay plus 3 weeks for each year of service. So for a 20-year colleague, that means 70 weeks under the existing formula. Now going forward, it's still the 10 weeks of pay, but the multiplier drops to 2 weeks for each year of service. So instead of 70 weeks of pay, we're now only receiving 50 weeks of pay. That is 20 less weeks of separation pay. Now for someone making $250,000, that comes out to about a $96,000 reduction in the severance package. So if you make more than $250,000 or you've worked there more than 20 years, that number can get well over 6 figures. So as you can see, this is a pretty meaningful change. Now, the other consideration to be aware of is the stability that severance provides. So these payments are paid in installments. So with 20 less weeks of pay, that means either a higher urgency to find a new position or a bigger dependency on saving sooner for those that are heading into early retirement. So as you can see, there's some major impact to the changes next year. All right, now let's talk about the second major change in the separation package announcement, and that is the continuation of healthcare coverage. And for a lot of people I work with, this one is actually more stressful in their exit planning. And the reason for that is for many people that are considering an early retirement, one of the number one roadblocks mentally and financially is having to navigate and figure out how to pay for health insurance premiums when you're no longer covered on a group plan. Now, under the current package, Pfizer has done a wonderful job alleviating some of that stress. The current separation package allows for 2 years of continued healthcare coverage. That's a big deal. Now, going forward, that number changes. It is either 1 year of health insurance continuation, or it will last the length of your severance. So that 2-year protection is no longer there going forward. That is really, really meaningful for those that are not quite Medicare eligible just yet. It now means that they need to figure out a longer bridge to help protect their medical costs leading up to Medicare. Okay, so let's discuss why this one matters so much. Let's say that you're 62 or 63 and taking that separation package. Under the current plan, that 2 years of coverage is going to get you to Medicare or get you within, spitting distance of it where you can use COBRA to bridge for the last couple of months. Under the new plan, that changes. So you're most likely only getting 1 year. So if you're not yet Medicare eligible, that means you need to go out on the marketplace or use COBRA. And for those that are familiar with getting insurance on the marketplace or COBRA, that's not cheap, right? You no longer have Pfizer picking up that cost. Now, for some people, they've heard about subsidies on the marketplace that helps bring down insurance. But for many people leaving Pfizer, they're getting that severance package. So their income most likely is going to be above those subsidy threshold premiums. So that's just another piece of the puzzle to consider as you're thinking about, hey, are we going to be in good shape to retire early, or do we need to go find another position? Okay, so the date that matters most here is December 31st, 2026. If your termination date for your waive is prior to that, you're still subject to the terms of the current separation package. After that date, that's when these changes come into place and you're subject to the new terms of the new package. Now, again, most people that are getting the separation package, it's a really emotional time, and for many, it's a huge gut-wrenching surprise. But the reason I bring up why this date matters is for others, in my experience, some leaders are looking for people to raise their hands if there's a wave coming. And the reason I want you to be aware of this news is not just to know what the difference is, but if you are someone that's on the fence of whether or not to raise your hand, it may be more fruitful for you to consider it this year as opposed to next year. All right, let's go a little bit deeper here. Leaving Pfizer, yes, the severance is important. Yes, the continuation of healthcare is important, but they don't exist in a vacuum. They connect to all the other Pfizer benefits, and knowing how those pieces are impacted in a separation can really help give you some confidence as you plan for the next chapter. So let's start with the Pfizer PRAP. That's the Pfizer pension. And the pension calculation typically is going to be calculated using age and years of service. Now, there's a few things to be aware of with the PRAP. So let's start with, how do you get the full pension? The full pension occurs at age 65. Now, you may have heard that people that have left Pfizer before age 65 got their full pension. And that is when they are eligible for Rule of 90. So Rule of 90 is when your age plus years of service equal 90. And if that happens at 60 or 58, you're still eligible for your maximum pension when you leave Pfizer. Now, let's say you're not 65 and you're not Rule of 90 eligible. If you've worked for Pfizer more than 10 years and you're over the age of 55 when you leave, your benefit is reduced by 4% for each year prior to 65. So let's just use that exact example. Let's say you leave at 55. Well, that's 10 years before 65, so your pension benefit would be reduced by 40%. Now, let's say you're not 55, or you're 55 and you haven't had the 10 years of service, then the pension benefit is reduced by 6% a year for each year before 65. So some pretty major reductions. Now, previous packages have included something called 5 points. So what that does is it boosts your eligibility towards 55 and 10 or Rule of 90. I have not seen anything in the current separation package or in the proposed changes to the package that reference anything about the 5 points. So that's not saying that they can't surprise us January 1st, 2027, but in the announcement that was sent out, nothing referenced 5 points. So for the time being, let's just ignore that consideration. Okay, really common question I also get is around long-term incentives. The RSUs, TSRUs, performance awards. What happens to them when you take a separation package? And this really hinges on whether or not you're retirement eligible. So if you're retirement eligible, and as a reminder, that's 55 years of age plus 10 years of service, any long-term incentive grants that you've held at least 12 months, they're coming with you. Now, they're not paid out at the time of separation. They're still paid out on that normal February vesting schedule, but they are coming with you. If you're not retirement eligible, you're forfeiting those grants, right? You're leaving those alone. Now, just as a reminder, most people receive their bonuses and their grants in February or March. So let's say you're in a wave in 2026. Any grants that were awarded to you this spring in 2026, you're going to leave those behind. They are not coming with you. So just something to be aware of as you're planning your cash flow going forward. All right, so with any severance and separation package, you've got some people that are using this and saying, hey, I'm done. It's early retirement. I'm not looking for another job. For others, it is a mad dash and a scramble to find a new position. So I do want to touch on one common mistake tax-wise that I see with people going to another company. And that involves the Pfizer PSP, the 401k. So a lot of colleagues that I work with, it is their goal to max out the Pfizer 401k with their own contributions as well as the company contributions. Now, here's something to just be aware of in your planning. If you leave in the middle of the year, you're going to have contributions to the Pfizer 401k. If you go to another company, they don't know about those contributions. So Pfizer, when you fully hit the IRS limits in the 401k, they're going to cut you off, right? That money no longer goes in. But if you go to a new company and you enroll in their 401k and your goal is to max out, make sure you subtract from the formula the amount that you've already put into the Pfizer 401k, because that new company most likely will not cut you off. And if you over contribute to a 401k, there's some penalties that are involved for that. And that is just a nightmare that you don't want to get into. So again, make sure that if you are going to a new company and enrolling in their 401k, you factor in the contributions you've already made so you're not putting yourself in a penalty scenario with the IRS. All right, I know that this video is a lot, and I know for anyone that I've spoken to that's wondering if they're going to get a separation package or laid off, it's incredibly overwhelming. It can be very emotional. But what I firmly believe is the worst thing that you can do is nothing. Doing nothing and not having a plan is what keeps people up at night. That unknown of what's going to happen and what does it mean for me. So preparation is going to help you navigate this appropriately. As someone that loves to be in the mountains and loves to do high altitude climbing, sure, I hope that bad things don't happen. But the reality is that's out of my control. Good planning and preparation is knowing what could happen, knowing what that means for me, and having a plan to address it if and when it occurs. And if you need help with planning, or if you have questions about your benefits or a separation package, I'm here for you. If you know any other Pfizer colleagues that would find this beneficial, please share it with your friends and coworkers. And I will be putting out more Pfizer-related content. So if this is helpful, please subscribe. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next one. And if you do get that separation wave, I wish you the best of luck. I know what that means, and I'm here for you if you need support.